Well, hey everybody, this is Steve J. Klein back again with another coin video. And today I wanted to make things a little bit easier for all of you that are coin collectors and are looking through your pennies, coin jars, however you have change, and you are trying to find out the values of your pennies. Because I searched for a long time to try to figure out what the values were of my own pennies. I would go and I would collect a whole bunch, as you can see here. I actually have them sorted out. So these are from the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. And then I do have some over here that's for the 50s also. But it took me a long time to try to figure out just all the values of them and try to figure out what they were actually going for in the market. So I wanted to help all of you to figure that out here just through this video. I'm going to be covering every single different Lincoln Cent penny value, so that way you can know exactly what it sells for, how much it's worth, if you do have, or whichever you have in your coin jars or whichever you have at home. So we'll be covering all those values, and I will be covering even ones that are going to be from more recent too, so it'll be from 2022 all the way back till 1909, which is essentially the start of the Lincoln Cent pennies. And so there's going to be a lot that I'm covering here. I'm not going to be doing a lot of editing here in this video just because I'm going to go through all of them just one at a time. And for those of you who are new to coin collecting and haven't done this before, I just want to mention a few things before I get started here. So number one, I'm going to be giving you the average value of the coins. Depending on the condition of each coin that you have in your coin jars or just at your, with your change at home, the values are going to range a little bit. So it could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower. It all depends on the condition of the coin. So what I'm going to be doing in this video, just to make it very simple and plain, I'm going to, whenever I go through the values of each coin, I'm going to give the average value of what you can expect if you just have a regular penny at home, what the regular condition is. So it's not going to be a whole bunch of different values all at once. It's going to be just the average value of what you could probably expect if you have it at home. A few more things too. So I also am not going to be doing any type of proof coins. Those are going to be pennies that it's a little bit different from the regular pennies. They look a little bit different. Proofs, if you're just going through your regular coin change, more than likely you're not going to have any proofs. Those do have a different value, which I will talk about in another video if you want to go check that out. But more than likely, all the pennies that you're going to be looking at, if they look just like normal pennies, they're not going to be proofs. So I'm not going to be talking about proofs. And then third thing is I'm not going to be talking about error coins or any anomalies to all the pennies here. It's just going to be the regular change that you'll find in your coin jars and things. So I'm not going to be reviewing any type of pennies that were made by mistake or that were, have different errors on the coins, things like that. So that's just another thing that I'll talk about in another video, but I'm just not, for this purpose, just to make it easy for y'all's life, I'm not going to be talking about those either. So without further ado, I am going to start with all the pennies that are more recent, and then I'm going to work my way back 1 year at a time, all the way back to 1909, which is the first Lincoln Cent. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move this out of the way and adjust the camera a bit so we can take a look one at a time here. All right. So the first coin that we're going to take a look at is, as I mentioned, the more recent of pennies, which is this one is 2021. So if you do see this on the back of your change, this is a typical, Lincoln Cent penny of today. This is what they mint. Or this is just how they look today. So because they're still printing these pennies, it's actually interesting. The government is actually losing money whenever they print these pennies. So if they ever do have these pennies go out of commission, if they stop printing pennies and we just resort to having everything be made, we're paying everything 5 cents in 5 cents increments instead of 1 cent increments. So for instance, if you went to the store and you had, you bought something for $20.50, you bought something and it would cost $20.52. If they got rid of pennies here, which they're looking to probably do in the next, in the future, it'll be $20.55 or $20.50. They won't, have any penny cent increments. And so they do have these pennies that are, as of right now, the government's losing money whenever they print these pennies because of the copper value in them. So in the future, these might be worth a little bit. But unfortunately, right now, just because there's so many of these that are made and because it's still being made from the mint, these are only worth 1 cent a piece. If you do see this on the back, that would be from, if I'm not mistaken, 2022 to 2010 is what these pennies would look like. So they're just worth 1 penny. There's nothing special about them, unfortunately. It's just the way that it is. So that is that. It's pretty simple. So that covers 2022 all the way back to, as I mentioned, 2010. I'm going to see if I have any 2009s here with me. Unfortunately, I don't think I do. If you do see a 2009 penny, then it'll have a few different designs that are on the back. It was to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the 1909 Lincoln Cent Pennies being made. So it'll have some different designs on the back. If you do have the collection, I think there's like 4 or 8 of them with different mints that are on there. If you do have that whole collection for 2009, then it's going to be, you could probably sell them at a little bit of a premium, maybe a few cents extra, but unfortunately, 2009, it's going to be the exact same thing. Again, they do have some different designs that are going to be on the back of the coin that has like Lincoln that's on there, cutting wood, and some other different designs, but they're all just 1 penny still. So that covers 2009, and then before 2009, I'm going to be talking about 2008 all the way back to 1959, and then after 1959, that's where we get into the more exciting stuff, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and talk about the 2008 to 1959. They are all going to have on the back of the coins here this. And so this is the Lincoln, gosh, I can't even think right now. This is the Lincoln Memorial Center. And on the front of so you'll see that on all the back of the coins there. And then on the front, you'll see, obviously, this has the date that's just listed here. And it has a D under it. So I want to mention that for all the pennies that are more recent, like I mentioned, 1959 to 2008, they are all going to be the same value for the most part. So all these different pennies, they made a lot of them after 1959. 1959 is when they started making them with the Lincoln Center on the back here. And it's not... they just haven't increased in value again just because they made a ton of them. They still make pennies today. So any ones that have this on the back, unfortunately, it's not going to be much in value. You could maybe expect for the Lincoln Center, maybe here in the coming future, maybe 2 cents for every 1 penny. But for the most part, they're just really not worth anything, not worth the hassle. So not something I would worry about there. The ones that are really going to be higher in value are going to be the wheat pennies, which I have a lot of, but any ones that are 1959, 2008, they did make a lot of them, so still not worth much. 2 cents a piece is probably the most you could get for them at the current moment and in the future here until things change or pennies go extinct. So that's another thing there too. All right, so now we get into the fun stuff. 1958 is the first wheat cent pennies. So you'll see on the back here, there is what looks to be wheat on the sides. So these are called wheat pennies, and these values from 1958 and before are going to increase in value the farther back you get. So, especially because, as I mentioned, pennies are going to be going extinct. I think that these values are going to be going up just because they're a little bit older. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of the 1950s pennies with me, but I can tell you just a little bit about them here. As you can see, I did write a few different values here that's at the bottom of the coins. I would not pay attention to those as much. I was just kind of guesstimating how much I would want to sell them for a piece based on their conditions. But a lot of these are not going to have the exact average values. So I'm going to be talking about mainly here the values of the pennies that are from, I want to say just basically all the 1950s, 1958 to 1950, and then even to 1948. All these different pennies, if you have any from 1948 to 1958, they're all going to be about 5 cents a piece. In today's market. If you sell them on eBay or even Craigslist or things like that, I think you could probably get about 5 cents a piece for them. They're really cool coins to have, but it's just they made a lot of these. So just not a lot of value, as I mentioned. But these values, it is, as I mentioned, as time gets older, it's going to be going up in value. They are wheat pennies. And I do want to mention too that for the mintages, if you do see here on the bottom of the penny, if it says S on the bottom, then typically those different coin values are going to be more in value than ones that are blank, as you see here, or the ones that have the D, like you see here. So if you see ones with S's, you could probably expect in the 1950s range closer to about 50 cents to $1. So the values do go up a bit. And then, of course, if you do have a better looking coin, like for instance, this is 1955, it looks better than some of the other ones that I have. I kind of gave an average value of about 50 to 80 cents. So I would, just be looking out for that too. The condition is going to range and, for the values also. So again, that's pretty simple. 1958 to 1948, it's going to be about in that range. So it does get a bit higher as we go back further here. So let me grab all my 1947s here now. All right. In fact, you know what? Besides just this 1947, I'm going to grab also a few of the other ones here. So the 1947D, which is here. And let me grab all the way back to, let me go ahead and grab all the way back to 1944, because they're going to be all about the same values also. I'm going to make y'all's lives a little bit easier. Okay, so I have quite a few here from the 1940s. So just looking at them one at a time, you'll see I did write a few values. It's at the bottom. There's the 1946D, 1944. Oh, actually, I'm going backwards here. 1946. So as you take a look at these, again, some of these are going to be better conditioned than others, so that is going to range in value here. The 1946. I would say about average for all these different pennies. If you have anywhere from 1947 and 1944, they're all going to be about the same values. It's not really much of a difference. It's going to be about $1. So there's another 1944, 44D. And as mentioned, if it does have the S on there, typically because the S, so just to give you a little bit of history here too, the letters that's on the bottom here is the different mints that these coins are made in. So 1944P, or Philadelphia, that is, or as mentioned, that's made in Philadelphia. The 1944D is made in Denver, and the 1944S, it's made in San Francisco. If the coin is blank, that is the 1944, or that is a coin that is a P coin, so from Philadelphia. So typically each year they made a lot more coins in the Philadelphia and the Denver mints, and that's why the S pennies were more in value, is because there's just not as much that's in there, in the world, and so it's going to be more of a value because it's more rare. But these ones, they're not going to be going for as much. But I do want to say, once again, all these pennies, they could probably get you about $1 a piece average. So from 1947 to 1944. And then as we go back further, as I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit cooler of coins and more fun of coins as we go back further. So next we have the 1943 pennies. And you might have seen a few of these before. These pennies are special because they were made during World War II, and these were made out of steel. So they were using a lot of copper back in the day whenever World War II was happening for different other materials, and they were just having a shortage of copper. So they didn't want to have problems with the mint there also printing pennies in copper, so they decided that year that to print them all in steel. And so you'll see that mine are definitely a little bit more faded than most, but it's still a really awesome penny to have. The values do go up, starting for this year just because they're a little bit different. And you might see that on the bottom of my coins here, I have written a few values there, about $2 a piece. That's about what I've seen you can get for some of them. But also you probably might be able, might be getting a little bit less for the coins just because these ones, they're not in as good condition. Again, this is what I would try to sell them for, is about $2-3 a piece. But as far as what you could expect as far as a really good value for these pennies if you were buying them, somewhere between $1 and $2 is what I would expect. If you find these somewhere for $1 or $2 a piece, I would pick a few up and just keep them. Again, they did have S, D, and P, or excuse me, just D and S, I think. Oh no, they didn't. They did make P's for this one also. But I only have D's and S's here. But the S's, again, I think they would go up for a little bit higher, be about $3 a piece. But yeah, as you can tell, it's not very good condition here. I just kind of picked them up as I was going along and finding them for cheap, and I just like to have them in my collection. All right, next we have the 1942 pennies. So I have for the 1942s, just the 1942 and 1942D. Now, we did talk about how the last penny was made out of steel. These, again, this is during World War II also, but they were still made out of copper then. So unfortunately, the value of them is not going to be that great. You could probably expect for 1942, 1942D, 1942S between about 15 cents to $1. So probably closer to a little bit lower. Unfortunately, it's the value is still not that great on these, but as we go back further, as I mentioned, it'll be a little bit more in value. Just these ones, not that much. Let's see, do I have any 1943s? Or I'm sorry, 1941s? I do. All right. So the 1941 pennies, 1941 D and S is what I have here. Those are going to be about the same. So not that much, again, 10 cents to about $1 is what I'd expect for those, depending on the condition. That's about the average values. Not much else to say about those. And the same goes for the 1940 pennies, about 10 cents to $1, depending on the condition. And I just want to mention too, so ways you can know how good the conditions are of the coin. You'll see that Lincoln here he looks faded more than a penny like this, for instance. So here it's a little bit more clear on the right side than on the left side. You'll see his face is a little bit more faded. You can see the date better on the 1958 coin as opposed to this one, and it does have like little, nasty looking edges there too, so that is going to have an effect on everything. And then on the back, you'll see that the wheat looks way better here than it does here, just because it's a little bit older. So that is going to affect the value of these coins. It is going to bring them down which again, I'll talk about conditions in another video, but for this video, average, like I said, 10 cents to $1 for these. All right, and the last of the pennies that are really going to be fetching, you know, again, lower values here. These ones, 1939s. As you start getting into the 30s, you could probably expect a little bit better of values, especially if you have them like as a, you know, in a set. A lot of people like to look for those and collect those, so I think it'd be really cool to sell those. But average values for these for 1939s would be between I want to say 15 cents to about $1.50. So still pretty cool. Yeah, as mentioned, some of these, they don't look very good. They have a little bit of wear and tear on them, or just different, it looks like mold almost. But yeah, so 10 cents to about $1.50 depending on the condition. All right, so let's see. I'm going to actually, let's go ahead and look at 1938s to 1936 pennies. All right, so, oops, there's another 1939. Okay, so now we start getting into some different pennies that that could reach for a little bit better of a value. So the 1939 S penny, or excuse me, 1938 S penny. This is a San Francisco mint that had a little bit lower of mintages than normal. So the 1938S could probably reach for a bit higher in value than some of the other 1930s pennies. I did mark that I would want to sell this for $5, but you could probably expect on average, you know, just to a regular buyer, or from a regular buyer, you know, closer to about $1.50 to $2, somewhere around there for this penny. I would say that's a pretty good value to have. So if you do have this in your collection, that would be really cool to have. So that's a nice one. 1938D, I would say this is about $1 to $1.50 is how much you could get for that one. 1938P, that is about the same. Actually, 1938Ps, a lot of the Ps in the 1930s are going to be a little bit lower in value, so you could probably expect here about 20 cents to $1, somewhere around there. 1937S. The 1937S, they did make a lot of these. Unfortunately, it's going to be about 20 cents to $1. 1937D, it's going to be about 20 cents to $1 is what I would say again. And actually, it's pretty much going to be the same with the rest of these here. As mentioned, they did make a lot of, or they did print a lot of these, you know, all together. So all the ones that are from 1939 to 1936, once again, I would say about 10 cents to $1 a piece is on average, unless you have some San Francisco mints, then it could be, you know, $2 to $4 or so. Okay, so let's get to, I'm gonna actually do the 1936 to 1934 pennies here. All right, so all the 1935 and 1934s. All the 1935 pennies. Again, they can range a little bit higher just because we start getting into some older pennies. It's really going to depend a lot on the condition of the coin. So this one, it actually doesn't look as bad as a lot of the other ones. This one, it does look pretty horrible. And this one, it does look horrible too. You can barely even make out the date, if at all, there. I had put this in a coin holder a long time ago, and unfortunately it was already faded there. So something like this would not reach your value, you know, would reach a really big value, as opposed to some of these would be higher. So these ones, 1935s, it's like I said, it's really going to depend on the condition for these ones, but you can expect at lowest about 20 cents, and at highest it'll probably be around $5 or so. So it'll really depend on the coin. So 1935s are pretty nice to have. And I would say same goes for the 1934s. The better the condition, the higher the value. Again, 10 cents, or I'm sorry, 10 or 20 cents to about $5, depending on the condition. If you think it looks really good, higher. If you think it looks not as good, then lower. Okay, 1933. Let's talk about that. So 1933 pennies, these ones are actually really nice to have. If you do have these in your coin jars, they can actually go for a lot higher than the other ones. So again, they did mint a little bit less of these than normal. In fact, I do have a little bit of a cheat sheet here. Yeah, they definitely printed a lot less. So for instance, 1934 pennies, they printed for the P's and the D's in total about almost 300 million of those. But once we start getting to 1933, they only printed for the P's, or the ones without, the letters on the bottom. They only printed for the P's 14 million, and then they only printed for the D's closer to 6 million. And so once we start hitting 1933 and backwards, the values start going up, exponentially. So 1933p, you could probably expect for these pennies between about $2 to about $10. Once again, depending on the condition. 1933d, they made even less of those, as I mentioned. You can expect for those closer to about $4 to about $15. So these are really awesome. I do love the 1933 pennies. They're just really cool to have. All right, 1932. I only have one of the 1932s, which is 1932D. They also made a 1932P. You can expect from both of them, 1932P and D, to be about $2 to about $10 to $12 on average, somewhere around there. So let's say average value is going to be about $4 to $5 for one of these pennies. So this is a pretty cool one. Mine's a little bit red and faded and things, but I kind of like how it looks, just kind of like that rustage feel, but definitely not something collectors look out for. All right, 1931, let's talk about that. So 1931 pennies. These are really fun. So the 1931p, let's start with that one. Once again, this is a low mintage year that they made the pennies. So 1931p, they made it, it's a bit higher than 1933. They made about 20 million. The 1933D, they made about 4.5 million. And so the 1931D is going to definitely fetch you a much bigger value. Hopefully, if you're just going through your coin jar and you find this penny, that is a really awesome one to have. I would honestly not sell it. I would keep it, because the longer you keep it, I think the value is going to continue to go up. But the 1931 P penny, you could probably expect from this one between about $1 to about $10. So on average, let's say about $4, just like what I have here. And the 1931 D penny, you could probably expect from this to be about $5 to about, let's say, about $35. So depending on the condition, it can really go up in value. I'm just going to go ahead and say just what I have here is about right. So about $14 is about average. So I hope that you have this one in your collection. And I do want to mention the 1931 S penny also is one that I do not have because it fetches for quite a high value. The 1931 S penny, if you have that one where it has an S on the bottom of the date, then that is going to be, it's one of the most rare pennies that's out there. And so on average, those values can range between $60 to about $200. So that is really awesome if you have those. I hope you do. But if not, again, these are still really cool to have. They're all really cool to have. All right, so 1930 pennies. Because these were made, again, it was a little bit higher mintage and not as special as the 1931. So unfortunately, all these, I could talk about them a bunch here, but I'm just gonna say, just for the sake of time here, all these pennies from 1930 to 1930D, they are about, $1 to $2 a piece. So yeah, about that much in value. And the 1930S would be a little bit higher. I would say between $1 and $5 or so. All right, let's go ahead and go to 1929. Starting to get a whole collection here, a whole pile. All right, so 1929 P pennies. Those are the ones, once again, that does not have the dates, or excuse me, the letters that's on the bottom. So 1929s, they did have a lot of these pennies made. Once again, so the value is going to come down. There was a high mintage. So it's probably going to be between, once again, $1 to $2 or so, maybe even less for these pennies. So not a whole bunch. 1929 Ds, so those are going to be between about $1 and $10 depending on the condition. And then the 1929 S pennies, those are going to be about the same. It's going to be about $1 to about $5. So yeah, that's pretty simple. 1928 pennies. So here, let's see, I do have the P and the D. So the P and the D pennies, oh, did I talk about the 1929 S's? I did not. 1929S, I don't have the 1929S, but if you do have that one, then the value is going to be between $1 to about $15. Depending on the condition. So those ones are going to be higher in value. 1928. So for the 1928s, the P is going to be between $1 to $2. So about the same as the rest of them there. And the 1928D, you can expect for this one between, I want to say $1.25 to about let's say $15 or so, depending on how good it looks. I would say on average you could probably find them for about $2 to $3 or so. So yeah, once again, simple. 1927. So the 1927 P pennies, those ones are actually a low mintage year, which is great. The P's actually, they were minted, most the same. So 1927 P's, again, $1 to $2, I would say for that. 1927 D pennies are from the Denver Mint. Those ones are lower mintage, so higher value. You'd probably expect between $2 to about, you could even find probably about $20 or so if you had it in really good condition. So on average, let's say about $3, $4 or so. That's not bad. And then the 1927S, I'm glad that I have one of these here. Same thing for this one. About, you could probably find between $2 to about, I think I've seen a few of these go for closer to about $30 or so. And so that would be 1927 S pennies. On average, you could probably be, $7, $8. All right, 1926. We're just rolling here. Hopefully I can keep this video under an hour. 1926P. So for the 1926P, once again, this is a higher mintage, so lower value, about $1 to $2 there. 1926D, I don't know if you can even see that there. My condition of the coin is really not that great. But 1926D, you could probably expect between $2 to about $30. So this is a nice one to have. Again, mine does not look that great, so it's definitely in the lower range. I think $250 is about average for a coin like this. And then this is also 1926D. If you have the 1926S, then that one is a really nice one to have. 1926S, the lowest value is probably around $9 to $10, and the highest value is around $70 to $75 if you have it in really, really good condition. So if you have the 1929S, that is awesome, good for you. But unfortunately, I do not have that one. And by the way, as I'm going through these, I know that there's a few coins that I might have missed. You know, if I miss one or two, that's like a specific, like a 1932 S penny or something like that. If I missed that, please let me know in the comments, and I will let you know exactly how much the value is. All right, so 1925p. The 1925p's, they are once again about $1 to $2 for that one. The 1925D, those are going to be between about $1 to about $15 to $20. This one, I think I priced this one about average, so $3 to $4. It would be about, be about right. You can see Lincoln's head is definitely faded in that one. And the 1925S penny would be once again about the same. I would say about $1 to about $30, depending on the condition. On average, you'd probably see about $3 to $4. All right, moving right along. Let's go to 1924. And I just want to mention too, we're getting to one really exciting penny that I like, one of my favorites here coming up in just a minute. 1924p, or Philadelphia Mint penny. 1924p is about $1 to, actually it could go up to about $5 or so. Oops. Yeah, so $1 to about $5. This one definitely is not very good condition, so I'd probably expect about $1, maybe even lower than that, honestly, because it's not very good condition, maybe even 50 cents. And the 1924S, if it's in good condition, which mine is definitely not, it's got a few scratches that are on there, but if you do have this in good condition, it can go for a little bit more. So it'd be between $1.50 to about, they've even gone up to about $60, $70. So those are really nice to have. 1924D penny, I don't have that one because it is one of the rare ones. And those values are between about $50 to $200. So on average, probably about $75, I would say, for those pennies. I hope you had that for your collection. If you see the 1924 and the D on the bottom of it, then good for you. That's awesome. But I do not have that one because, well, I'm not that rich to buy all those different types of pennies. All right, next, the 1923 Lincoln Cent. The 1923p, I would say it's about $1 to $2 for this one. Actually, for the ones that are in better condition, you could probably get a little bit more, closer to $5 to $10. But the average is probably going to be around $2 or so. And the 1923S, so this penny is one of the more valuable ones. You are going to be expecting for this one, just because, again, it is a low mintage coin, between, I want to say, it could go up to about $50, but on average, I would say about $10 per the penny in average condition there. So that is, that's pretty cool to have. Okay, so next I have the 1922 penny. And this is the one that I really love, that I mentioned earlier. There was only one 1922 penny that was made, so they only made one 1922, they only printed it for one mint, and that was from the Denver Mint. And I actually do have this coin. So the 1922s, the lowest value that you could probably find for these, I actually I mean, I wrote this here, but that was back in the day when I wrote this here. The value actually has gone up. You could probably expect an average condition about, I want to say $25 or so. So it's almost double than what I wrote here before. But I really love having this one just because it's rare. It's one of the only ones that was minted, and so it's something that's a little bit more collectible for people to find. A lot of people that like to find pennies from each year, this one is going to be one of the hardest to find. And so if you have this one, that is awesome. Average value, like I said, about $25, but you could see between, I want to say 20 to about I want to say $75 or so for this penny. On average, probably on the lower end, about $25. But that's an awesome penny. All right, we're almost done with the 1920s here, and then we'll jump right into the 1910s, and then finally the 1909 in the very end. Okay, 1921. There we are. 1921p. So the 1921 was one of those ones that it can range in value between $1 to $10, I would say, depending on the condition. So mine actually doesn't look that bad, so I would expect probably about, I want to say $4 or $5 maybe for that one. Maybe a little bit less, but about $4 or $5 I think I'd be happy with that one. And 1921 S penny, those actually would be about the same. So it'd be about, $1 to $10 or so. So $4.50, yeah, I might be overshooting a little bit. Maybe for this penny specifically, it'd probably be about, $2 or so. And then if you have the 1921D, the same thing goes for that one. I just don't have, oh, excuse me, no, there wasn't a 1921D that's there. So never mind. All right, 1920 pennies. So the 1920p penny are from Philadelphia. Those ones also are about $1 to $2. The 1920D penny, do I have any of those? I do. So yeah, there's a 1920p also. 1920D penny is actually a little bit higher. You could probably expect about between $1.50 to closer to even $20 or so. On average, you could probably expect closer to about maybe $2.50, $3 for these. So that's not too bad. There's another 1920D. And the 1920S pennies, that actually is a little bit lower. So it's going to be between about $1 to about, let's say $7 or so. So yeah, $2.50, that sounds about right, although this penny does not look very good, so I want to say this one would probably be like $1.50. Okay, now we get into the 1910s. So once again, the farther we go back, the higher the value is typically going to be. The 1910s, I'll start with the 1919p. 1919p, once again, this one actually is going to be about $1 to $5, depending on the condition. It really, all these ones from here on back is really going to depend on the condition. You might have noticed that in the earlier pennies that I talked about, it was between $1 to $2 for most of the pennies, but in these ones, the better the condition, the higher the value is going to be. So the condition is really going to matter for a lot of these pennies. So the range is going to be a lot higher. So the range for this one is going to be between about $1 to $5 on average. Let's say regular penny would probably be about, unfortunately, about $1 or so. Let's see with that one. All right, I got these mixed up here. All right, 1919D. Let's see if we can see that one. Man, you cannot see that very well. That's all right. So then 1919D is about $1 to about $10 or so. So once again, really depends on the condition. Let's say that this one I did have about right, about $2, as I would say, about there. This one's got a line right through it, so that really screws up the value with the coin, unfortunately. So this one's probably just about $1, if even lower, maybe 50 cents. And then the 1919 S penny. Let's see, as you can see the date there. 1919S, if you have this one, about $1 to, I want to say $5 or $6 is about the average value there too. All right, so we head into the 1918s. All right, 1918P, or Philadelphia Mint. 1918s are going to be between $1 to about $3 or so. This one, I would say it's about average, $1.95, maybe a little bit less, $1.50 or so. 1918D penny, it's going to be actually a little bit higher for this one, about $1 to about 15, well, maybe like $10 to $15. So on average, $2.10. I think that's about right for that one. And the 1918 S. 1918 S pennies is about $1 to, once again, about $10 to $15, right about the same. Okay, 1917s. Wow, you cannot see the date on that one very well at all. And that's probably because, yeah, I think I just found this one at a really, maybe in a coin roll or something like that, but I thought it was cool. So 1917P, about $1 to $2 on average. Actually, no, I'm so sorry. So $1 to about, I want to say $10 if it's really good condition. I'm just looking at mine and thinking this looks horrible. But yeah, I would say mine here is about 75 cents maybe, or maybe even lower than that, because it just looks horrible. You can't see the date very well. But yeah, 1917, about $1 to $10. This one looks a lot better, so I would say this one's closer to about $2 or so. 1917 D pennies. Once again, this one actually ranges in value quite a bit depending on how good the condition is. This one actually, my condition of this coin actually looks a lot better. I might have undervalued this one. I think the 1917 D penny, if it looks really good, you could fetch a range closer to about $30 or so. But on the low end, it could be for 1917 D about $1. So really depends on the condition. I would say this one actually looks pretty good. Maybe closer to about $5 for this one is how much I would try to get for it. And 1917 S, so the 1917 S penny, that one is going to be between $1 and $10. So actually not as much as the 1917 D penny, which is a little bit different. All right, here we go. 1916. We're almost to the end here, guys. All right, 1916 pennies. So once we come to the 1916s, once again, it's about $1 to about $10 for this one, depending on the condition. This one looks, again, not very good, so I would say this is closer to about $1. 1916 D penny or Denver, that one is going to be, let's say about $1 to $15. And so, it's good condition. Hopefully you have it, something that looks really nice. Again, I might have undervalued this one a little bit. I would say actually $2.50 is about right for this penny. So right in between there. And the 1916 S is, the S is, like I mentioned, usually more rare. So this one actually is one of those that it is more rare. You can expect between $2 to about $25, depending on the value or on the condition. This one, I would say I got about right, $3.25. It's not in the best of condition, but it's not in horrible condition either. So $3 is, I would say, is fair. Okay, 1915 pennies. This is a fun one because I do have the P, the D, and the S for this one. The 1915s are one of those ones that that can be fun. So the 1915 P is can range between about $1 to about $60. So it is, you can find ones that are really nice for these ones here for your collection. This one is about, just looking at this condition, the average would probably be about $3.50 or so. So I think I got that one about right, maybe $4 or $5. Could be a little bit less though, 1915. But I would say about $4, $3 is about right. The 1915D penny or Denver, as you can see, this one's really grainy, so it's not very good condition. But 1915D, you can expect between $2 to about $20. So, gosh, that looks really horrible. I cannot see that very well, so I can expect probably maybe $2, $1.50 for that one. But yeah. All right, and this one is probably one of the most expensive pennies that I ever bought here. I actually got this as I didn't buy it. I got it as a gift. But the 1915S can reach quite a good value. So on the low end, you could expect between about $20, and on the high end, you could probably expect between $75. So this one, they marked it as very fine, and it's marked as $28 here. I think the value has actually probably gone up for this penny. You could probably find it for about $30 now because of its condition. If not, maybe even closer to $40 or so. I bought this about, I want to say 5-10 years ago, so the value has gone up just with inflation. But yeah, I would say maybe like $40. All right. Next up, let's see. So we have the let's see, I think we're on 1914 now, are we? Yeah, we are. All right. 1914, I only have the P for the 1914 here because, talk about why in just a minute, but 1940p penny, you could expect a value for that one between $1 to about $25. Once again, depending on the condition. The 1942D and 1914D and S. I don't have these pennies because they are very, very rare, or at least the D is. The 1942D, if you have that one, at low end, you could expect 14D to be about $200, if not $250, to closer to, it could be $750 plus. So that one is a really, really nice one to have. Obviously, I don't have that one with me. I wish I did, but if you have the 1914 penny and you see the D on the bottom, then you've hit the jackpot. Those are one of the nicest ones you can have. And then the 1914S, those ones actually a little bit less in value, but still really good. It's $25 to about $75 for that one. On average, let's say about $30 to $35. So 1914S, once again, really cool value. Which, by the way, if you do have one of these really rare pennies in your collection that you're going through here with me, let me know if you have one of those. I'm curious as towards what people find in their coin jars, and if you're looking through this with me and you're like, oh my goodness, I've hit the jackpot, then let me know in the comments, and I'd love to respond to that. So if you have any rare pennies that's higher than like $5 a piece that I've gone through already, let me know, and I'd love to congratulate you on that. Now the 1913 pennies, we're getting close to the end. So 1913, once again, you could probably expect between about $1 to even closer to about, let's say $15 or so for this penny. So this one, not as good condition. Let's see, the 3 on there is kind of hard to see. So yeah, this one, not very good condition, but I think I could probably maybe get $3 or $4 for it. The 1913p penny, I don't know if I talked about that one, 1913p. Actually, I'm so sorry. This is the 1913D, not a 1913p. So 1913p is about $1 to $15. 1913D, on the other hand, that's closer to about $3. It could be $3 to even up to $50 if you have it in really, really good condition. If you don't have these coins in coin holders, by the way, if you don't have them in somewhere, you just have them up in your change, I would get a coin holder, to be honest, because that you don't want a whole bunch of fingerprints on it. The less you can touch it, the better. So get it in a coin holder, get it in something where you can preserve that value so you don't touch it and rub it even more, because it does rub over time. But the 1932P, or excuse me, the 1913D, $3 to about $50. So that is awesome. And then the 1913S, this penny is one of a rare collection here. It can range between about $10 to about $60. So this, I think this one, I actually undervalued this one also. Again, I would say this is closer to about $15 or so, maybe $20. So that's about average, but that's once again, one of the rare ones. Okay, 1912, we're almost there. 1912 Philadelphia mint, so no mint on the bottom here. If it's a 1912, about $1.50 to about $10 to $12. So that's that one. 1912D, so the Denver mint, that one is a little bit more rare, so I would say between about $7 to let's say about $60, depending on the condition. So mine, again, I think I undervalued this one here, or the value has gone up over time. I would say this is closer to about $8 to $10 now in today's value. So this one is a pretty nice one. If you have the 1912S, which I don't have for my collection here, but if you have that one, then the value is closer to about $25 to $75 on average, probably $30 to $40. So that is awesome. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned the 1913S or not, but those ones can range between about $15 to about $60. Okay, next, 1911. 1911P, this is 2 years away from, the third year that they started making the Lincoln Cent Pennies. 1911, if you have the P, it's about $1 to about $1 to $5 there. This one's probably $1 because it's not very good, and this one's probably about $2. 1911D or Denver Mint penny, between $5 and $50. So ranges quite a bit. On average, you could probably expect maybe $8 or so for this penny. For this one specifically, I would say about maybe $6 to $7. 1910. Your 1910D penny is about $1 to $5. Nothing too special about that one. 1910S penny. Mine is not in good condition at all here. You can see it's very splotchety, and it's even got some different scratches on the back. It's about, on average for this penny, about let's say $15 to closer to $50. On average, if it's an average looking coin, you could probably get about $25 or so. This one, again, it looks really bad. It's got a lot of splotches, so I valued it under, but I would say I could probably still get about $15 to $20 for this one. All right, and we get to the last year here, which is the 1909. So the 1909 P penny, that one is about $5 to $10. Once again, the 1909 VDB pennies. So these ones are a bit different. So we see the 1909 is on the front, and on the back, I don't know if you could see it too well or not. Oh gosh, it's really blurry there. But on the bottom of the penny, you're going to have to look for yourself for your own pennies, because I don't think you'll be able to see it here. But there is a marking that says VDB on the bottom. And that little marking that's there is going to make the value of the penny go up quite a bit. So be looking on your pennies if you do have a 1909 for that VDB on there. So if it's a 1909, but it doesn't have an S on the bottom here, but it has a VDB on the back, those pennies can typically range, oh gosh, trying to remember what they go for here. I think it's about $10 to $50 depending on the condition, but maybe a little bit less. I think it was like $10 to $25 or something like that. So those ones are really nice to have. The 1909 S penny, those ones go up even higher. So that's the ones that have the S on the front but don't have a VDB on the back. Those are about $100 to about $300, maybe actually I want to say $100 to $250. So the 1909S is one of the more rare ones, and then of course the most expensive penny that there is and the best for last is the 1909S VDB. And those ones are the ones that have the 1909 date, has an S on the bottom, and has a VDB on the back. If you have those, it's the most rare penny besides era coins that you can have for your collection. And those values can be about, it'll be in the thousands probably if you have this penny. Again, it'll all depend on that condition, but I've seen pennies go for $1,000. I've seen them, some of them go for $5,000. So those, just one penny alone can be quite rare. I think the highest value I've seen for a 1909 SVDB was like about $50,000 in really good condition. So that is, that's a really nice penny to have. And that's it. So that is all the different pennies that we've gone through. Again, if I did miss any pennies here that I just forgot to mention a mint just because I didn't have it here or something like that, I think I missed maybe one or two, leave a comment below and I will tell you exactly how much the value I think is of it and how much you could get for it. And hopefully you've been able to learn a little bit today just about Lincoln cents and about just collecting. And if you haven't already, by the way, please do subscribe. I've been making a lot more of these videos so you can learn just about coin values. I also make videos about the future and the past. So really exciting stuff that I'm going to be doing with my channel here, but I just wanted to make a little bit longer video today so you can know your values of your pennies. I'm going to be talking more about the specifics in the future with all different ones, but once again, hope you really enjoyed this. It's been a pleasure talking to y'all today, and we'll see y'all next time.